Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Thursday Namaste Village experience. Wonderful to have you back. And it's wonderful to have our dear brother Neil Rogan back. As we know, Neil often joins us on Thursday mornings, and we just love the deep, whimsical light that he brings to us. And we're very happy that he has recovered from his cold and is able to join us again. So I'm just going to introduce him, turn it over to him, and I'll share a little bit more as we go here based on whatever he shares. So Neil, my brother, good to see you. Take it away. Neil has not been unmuted, everyone. There you go.
Can you hear me? Okay. Wow. It's so wonderful to be me. Because I get to see you. And you get to see me. It's really exciting. So I've been kind of under the weather. I don't know where they got that term, under the weather, but now I'm over the weather. And I had signed up for a silent retreat, but I couldn't go, so I got the recording. I turn them up really loud. So there's a lot to be said for silence. So, I was wondering what I was going to talk about today, so I'm really excited to find out what it is. We got a picture the other day of a friend of ours, a man with his first grandchild, and he's holding it. It was just a beautiful picture, and you could just feel the reverence for this baby. Babies are holy. I mean, they just. So he looked like, kind of. He had this glow around him, and the baby had to glow around. It's like a Madonna and child. And and I realized that we are in such awe when a baby, a newborn, is in our presence, because it's made by God and we can feel it. And it just exudes this sacred holiness. And then I realized, well, we were all that way. We were all that beautiful gift from God, made by God. And then we become people. And then we're not so holy, we're just people. But then a baby comes in, it's like, oh my God, it's a baby. But it's a baby human. And something happens along the way where that baby is loved and taken care of and hopefully becomes a functioning human being. But there's something that it's born with in its heart. All of us are born with this holy mission. I know that what's at the basis, what's at the foundation of us is the desire to help. I mean, we come here with this need, this yearning to extend the love of God to the world. We're kind of like what our dear friend Miranda McPherson calls, we are grace delivery devices. And we don't feel complete, we don't feel fulfilled, and that yearning is not touched until we do that in some way. Find our real purpose for being there. But something happens in this culture. Because this yearning to, I remember when I was a little, you had ask a little person before they're culturated, before they're civilized, what they want to be when they grow up, and they'll say something like a doctor or an astronaut or a fireman or a nurse, something that helps.
Right.
There's this yearning, and I remember when I was little that I was going to come and I was going to make everything better. I saw the world and I went, oh, I can fix this. That's my job. And we all have that. We all kind of like yearn to, deep down, become in our heart is implanted this sweetness to want to end suffering, to want to extend God's divine love to the world, to create as we were created. But somewhere along the line, that becomes, you grow up. Thank you. So something happens along the way where we put that back up on the shelf, and it's not really what we're here for. We're here to take our place in society. And I think something happens to us when we have to give up that thing we came here to do, really. And we're asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? I think the real question we're being asked is, what do you want to be when you give up? What? You know, you are everything. Now you have to become something. You've got to take your place and do the thing that you're here to do, which to a being as big as we are, as magnificent as we are, as capable as we are, to have to fit ourselves into a small role where everything to have to become a something is wrenching in a way. And I kind of wonder if, you know, the trauma and resistance and rebellion of adolescence is fighting against that. I don't want to become somebody. I don't want to become a thing. I don't want to have a particular role in job or where I'm identified as that for the rest of my life. So that and we all have that feeling, that yearning that isn't satisfied by no matter what we accomplish in the world. I mean, there are people who are very accomplished and very successful, and still that yearning is there. So, you know, I think it's because we're trying to scratch an itch in our heart by scratching our head, and it never quite does it. And until we retrieve that original mission of ours, until we, you know, actually recall and reinvigorate and reanimate the part of us that wants to help, that is here to make things better, that is here to love, and begin to see each other as what we are. I mean, divine souls of God, magnificent souls of God, not just personalities. I mean, it's great to have a personality, but it wants to look good. It wants to be impressive. It wants to stand out. It wants to distinguish itself. It wants to separate. I think everybody is is doing exactly the same thing, which is trying to be different. And so for me, the spiritual practice, the spiritual path, that desire to return to God or to find something that is deeply meaningful, more meaningful than temporal accomplishments in the world, that our desire to come back to God, to come back to what created us, to rediscover and allow ourselves to experience our own holiness. I think we're moving, like towards holiness, thankfully, and away from assholiness. So, I'm at the kind of like beyond the fourth quarter of my life. I figured out that I got 4 quarters because I'm a sports fan, right? So I have 4 20-year quarters. So when I got to my 80th year, I realized, oh, I'm in sudden death overtime. So this is like free time. I'm living on borrowed time and looking forward to whatever is after the game. And I think I'm on God's team. But the desire all my life to find something that really touched me, moved me, made me cry, made me drop to my knees in that experience of awe. The recognition of what I am within. I don't think people get very far until they really allow themselves to discover that and to experience that they are within something that is much bigger than them. So when my ego, which I love my ego, I call it Migo. So Migo is, is Neo, has been me. I answer to the word Neo, but like a dog, when I hear my name. And but it's a role I'm playing. And it is constantly trying to improve, fix, mend, alter itself, its feeling of essential brokenness. Because my ego was made when I was a little holy infant. And I was completely and utterly vulnerable at the effect of everything. I would die without attention. And I got it from my parents. But they didn't know really what they're holding, what a baby really is. It's their child. And there's this automatic divine love we have for our children. But something happens because your parents are not completely enlightened, to say the least. But then at some point, they either let me stay too long crying in the crib, or they ignored me when I needed something. But something happened where I realized, holy shit. Of course, I didn't swear I was a baby, but wow. Uh-oh. This kind of trauma. And because they are God to me, I cannot make them wrong. They are not wrong. It must be me. So I come up with some kind of little seed decision about myself. Oh, I see. I'm not valuable. I'm not good enough. I'm lacking. I'm flawed in some way. And that becomes the kind of kernel of sand around which we build the pearl of our personality. And we layer it and layer it and layer it. And it spends the rest of its time trying to get talked out of it. This feeling of emptiness. I don't remember, but I'm sure at one point my mother turned to me and I did something when I was little, and she said, "What's wrong with you?" what is wrong with you? That is a very powerful question. The question wasn't, is something wrong with you? No, the jury's in, there's something wrong with it. What is it? So it isn't even a possibility that but your job, and that was the wild goose chase that I went on for the rest of my life, trying to figure out and fix what's wrong with me. And I could find a lot of stuff. And as soon as I fixed that, there was this other thing that was still wrong with me. And so it became, in a dog racing track, there's a plastic rabbit that the dogs chase after. And they go around and around, they almost catch it. And so I chased that magic plastic rabbit for the rest of my life. And I accomplished a lot of stuff. I have a wonderful, very impressive little resume or bio of what I've done in my life. And it's very impressive. But I have to read it to be impressed. And I have to remind myself, oh yeah, I'm good. Because that feeling of emptiness, that feeling of lack that's at the center of my identity is still there. And the only thing that I think really touches it is when I become a grace delivery device. So today, right now, I'm touching that part of me by being here with you. It makes a tremendous difference. You contribute so much to me by allowing me to contribute to you. And each of us wants to do that for each other. Most of the time we spend our time just kind of looking good. We do things for what it looks like, or what it says about us. So it dispels this feeling of something's missing there. And for a moment it works. If you get accolades, it really works. But the next morning, that buzz is still there. It doesn't really go off. And so my wild goose chase, my need to continually use the external world to validate me. The recognition that the external world is not here for you, you're here for it. There's nothing missing in you. You're what's missing in the world. The world out there, that's world. That's the world minus you. Your contribution is what is missing and what's necessary and what's possible. And what really fulfills us. You've inspired me, by the way, I'm working on the second edition now. And I'm going through all of the things where I got this stuff. And I realized that I've had this relationship with a wisdom source. I have two kinds of voices in my head. I don't know if you do, but I think one, the voice is of my personality, which is accusatory and judgmental and makes me feel kind of bad, but it's got me. And then there's a voice of wisdom and of love and leniency, and I can tell the difference. I can really tell the difference. But how do I get from that accusatory, judgmental, things need to be different, I don't like what's happening, to the one that allows and accepts? How do I get to the source of wisdom when I don't know? And so I'm working on this lifelong process of how do we get from a question mark to an exclamation point? How do we go from what? because it happens. But it kind of happens spontaneously. And I'm thinking there must be a way to cause spontaneity to happen. I spent a lot of my time rehearsing my spontaneity. Writing out my improv. And whenever I'm prepared, I'm not present. But it takes a lot of courage, at least for me, to not prepare. And to realize, well, I've been preparing my whole life. And that if I sit down and say, how can I serve? Use me, that something happens. I'm improvising right now. I have no idea what's going to happen.
Hey, Neil, I'm going to interject here a little bit because I'm just loving some of the things that you're sharing. And I've been keeping a little list here. So some of the highlights are, you talked about, I don't think you used these words, but there's a vulnerable glow to an infant, to that, what we could call original innocence that's still within us, and it's vulnerable, but it glows, and maybe it glows because it is so vulnerable. The vulnerability of the infant is what makes it glow, and it's the same for each one of us. There is a glowy, there is a shiny, light-filled aspect to each one of us when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable. And I'll jump to the end here because you talked about the courage to not prepare, to just show up in free form and allow whatever needs to come through in the moment to come through, rather than thinking that you can know such a thing in advance. This is something I talk a lot about, just the willingness to be present and to not prepare. There's a magic to that. There is an energy that takes over when we just allow the moment itself to guide us. And I could really feel that this morning with you. You also talked about the yearning for the real. There's a yearning that we all feel within us. There is a longing that is always there. We could say that it's the longing for God. We could say that it's the longing for love. Of course, the ego misinterprets that longing and says it's for a love of another person. If I could only get that other person to love and to love me, the yearning will disappear, but we know that it never really does. Because it's the yearning for the real, and the real is within me, always and forever. And right after that, you talked about scratching an itch in our heart. There is this, it's like that yearning, there's an itch that needs to be scratched, and that itch can only be scratched through service, by giving to others, by sharing. And that's the only thing, once again, that can ever satisfy us, giving that which we think we need. But the two things that I think I enjoyed the most that you shared, this idea of me-go, me-go, instead of ego. It's the me. The ego is always focused on me. How does this affect me? How does this let me do whatever it is I think I need to do to be a greater and a bigger me? As opposed to the opposite, which is thee. Less of me, more of thee. How do I allow that to expand? So it's not about focusing on an identity, the me that I've claimed since I was born and people told me who I was and I decided all these things, to let that go, to let that dissolve, and to be like that infant, that vulnerable, holy child that is fresh and glowing with new life. And you talked about the magic plastic rabbit. I love that. You know, the idea that there's always this rabbit spinning around this circuit, and these dogs think that it's a real rabbit, so they chase it at full force. And that's exactly what we do. That's what the me-go does. Whatever that magic plastic rabbit is to us, We all have some aspect of it, something that we're chasing, going in a circle. It's not real. It's just plastic. Even if we caught it, it's going to be completely unsatisfying. Imagine if there was one dog that was so much faster than all of the others and it caught that magic plastic rabbit. It's going to be very disappointed because it's not a real rabbit. And what they're chasing.
You would have to get rid of it so it doesn't tell the other dogs.
Exactly. Yes. You know, it's like Aristotle's cave analogy. That one who finally breaks free and stands and turns around and sees that it was only figures casting shadows onto the wall. That's what their reality was. That person can perhaps try to express that, what they just learned, to the other people who are still tied. But ultimately, they're going to need to get that one out of there. Otherwise, everyone's going to be untied. The game will be up. So, oh, and one final thing. I really like the idea of how do we get from a question mark to an exclamation mark? From a question mark to an exclamation mark. That's the experience. That's the experience we talk about here every single day, and that we're guiding people into and through every single day. We're not asking a question anymore. We're proclaiming that which we know to be true, that which we feel within to be reality. It's an exclamation mark. I know this. I don't believe it. I know it. And when we join together in that knowing, it increases within us. The vibrancy, the power of that increases within us, and we all become that exclamation mark of truth. So thank you, Neil. That was a beautiful share. And we have a couple more minutes left. If you'd like to share anything else before we go, please do.
Well, I went through my file and found one. I just want to read a short one. And it's about being present, being here, not leaving the moment, or chasing the rabbit. This will never be that. That will always be over there. This is here. This is all you will ever have. And it is all you need. So stay here. Here is where your power lies. Not in that, but in this. This is bliss. Stop trying to make this wrong. You're rejecting your experience, denying your own Messiah, saying no to your own Savior. It is here with you, has always been here with you, you've always been with the Holy Spirit. He is no stranger to you. He is your beloved. You cannot sin in his eyes. He never forgets who you really are. So do not think that sin could dim or blemish the radiant face of your true self. You are magnificent and trying to be okay. All because you deny this, your only gift from God, the box within which the gift of grace is found. Love this. Thank you so much.
I love this. I love you joining with us. I love the wisdom that you inspire within us. This is where it's at. So thank you so much, Brother Neil.
Thank you.
So grateful, as always, for your presence. Come back next Thursday. I'm sure you'll have something else wonderful to share. So before we go, because we didn't start with this, we just love our morning prayer and proclamation. So we'll go ahead and end with this now. I'll go ahead and I'll bring it up on the screen. And I hope you will join me in this. Here we go. My soul has but one goal, to awaken to the truth that is forever true. My heart has but one desire, to remember the passion of infinite bliss. My mind has but one focus, to embrace the reality that is forever real. I choose to awaken now to the infinite love that is my source. I give everything to this love, just as it has given everything to me. I am awake now. Now I want everybody on the Zoom land to unmute. Go ahead and unmute your microphones as I ask you, how is everyone today?
Awake and
ready.
How feels everyone today?
awake and ready.
Awake and ready. Thank you, Yogananda, for giving us that beautiful prayer. We love you. We have our good friend Kamala is going to be coming back and sharing again tomorrow. You remember her from Monday, so she's going to share a little bit more tomorrow. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Neil. Everyone have a beautiful day. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Love you.
Thank you.
Happy Thursday.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Love you all.
Bye-bye.
Tomorrow.
Love you.